Hi, I'm Sean here with Clock Encore, and this is going to be a deck profile of the Red Girlfriend beta deck that you just saw play in the match. So we're going to start with the level zeros. Up first we have the deck Suicider. I play 4 copies of it. It's notable because you can also pay 1 stock to send any level 0 or lower character in the front row to the waiting room. It's known as anti-runner because that's perhaps the most notable use that it has, but if your opponent runs out an anti-heal early, you can then also snipe it really quickly before it can get reversed. There's a whole bunch of other utility uses it has. You can use it to just kill a generic level 0 if you need to pad a Climax early and don't have any other way to use it. It also just suicides any level 0. It's a good card. I played the full 4 copies allowed. Up next we have the Dex Level Assist. So we can see this is a global 500 to all red characters. The other thing this does is that when it comes out, you get to look at the top card of your library and you get to choose whether you want that card to go on the top or the bottom of the library. Lets you push something that you don't want on top to the bottom, and just generally 2 of these in your back row gives you plus 1000 power globally. Helpful at level 1, pretty solid at most levels. I also play a full 4 copies of this because of the ability and because of the scry. Up next we have an interesting card that I don't think I've seen printed outside of Girlfriend Beta. What this does is when it comes into play, you can pay 1 stock and discard a card from your hand to give another of your characters plus 1000 power until the end of the turn, and the ability that when they reverse something, you can salvage. Now this has a lot of utility in this deck because it has level 0 Suiciders, and as you'll see it also has level 1 Suiciders. So you have a bunch of different cards with which you can get the effect guaranteed, and you can also just put that effect on a level 1 and beat over an opponent's stray level 0 to make sure you get your salvage effect. And it's also nice because if you sequence your attacks right, even against Kantai's anti-salvage, as long as the card you attack with last, by the time you're salvaging you've already done your damage anyway, so you don't really have to worry about anti-salvage. I play 3 copies of it. It also makes a good discard outlet and generally helps you salvage, and this deck is all about salvage. Up next we have another interesting card. They're 1500 power base, and they have Hand Encore. But the real strength of the card, in addition to having Hand Encore in case you're stuck at level 0 with nothing else to beat with, is that when it attacks you can give another of your characters plus 1500 power for the turn. Plus 1500 is a pretty significant boost. It helps you beat over stuff at pretty much every level. It also synergizes very well with this deck's 1-0 Clock Encore, which gains plus 1000 attack every time a character attacks. So if this is one of them, you're essentially giving that character plus 2500 with just this card. I play 3 copies of it. It also makes a good backup beater if you need something that you know will have board presence. You can play this. And last but not least, we have the Dex Brainstormer. It also gives plus 500 to front row center, and in addition you pay 1, rest it to brainstorm mill top 4, and you get to salvage for every Climax you hit. It's a very good brainstormer. In general, the plus 500 to front row center is only a bonus. I play 2 copies of it. Alright, we're going to move along to the level 1 game now. This is the Dex Level 1 Suicider. It's a conditional Suicider. If you have 3 or more other red characters, it's a level 1 Suicider, and with 2 back rows, and since the deck plays Clock Encore, as we will see shortly, it's pretty easy to keep 3 other characters on board for the Suicider. It also combos earlier with that 0-0 that lets you pay 1 and discard to give another character plus 1000, and the ability to salvage when it reverses something. And for those 2 reasons combined, I play the full 4 copies. Speaking of Clock Encore, here is that Clock Encore. It's a 1-0 4500 base that gains plus 1000 power every time one of your other characters attacks. So when you have a full board of attackers, it attacks as a 6500 minimum before assists. If you have 2 copies of the 0-0 assist we discussed earlier, that's 1-0 7500 Clock Encore. So it gets reasonably big on the attack. And it also can combo with that 0-0 that gives plus 1500 attack, something else when it attacks earlier. So you can actually get this thing pretty large, surprisingly large on attack, and then when they beat over it, you just Clock Encore and maintain board presence. I play 3 copies. And then lastly, in our level 1 game is this. It's a fairly standard beater, 106,000. When it comes out, you can rest a red character, and conveniently the assists in the back row are red characters. This gives you another option to play in terms of beating. It doesn't have Clock Encore, but that means that you don't have to necessarily keep it around. There'll be 7,000 if you have the 2 assists, which is reasonably big for a costless beater. I play 3 copies of that to have a decent mix between that and the Clock Encore, so I have a decent variety of beaters depending on what the situation entails. Alright, we're going to move on to the level 2 game, which starts with a card that's not actually a level 2, as you'll notice. This is the Dex Advance Summon. It's a level 3 that can come out at level 2 under the fairly easy condition of having 4 red characters on your board. And for that you get a 3/2 10,000 at level 2, but the real strength in this card is its Climax combo. It Climax combos with a 2k1 by paying 1 stock when it attacks, and it gets plus 2,500 power until the end of your opponent's next turn, and you get to salvage 2 characters from your waiting room, which is a pretty big salvage, and if you Climax combo, it means this thing's 12/5 minimum on your opponent's next turn, more realistically anywhere from 13,000 to 15,000. And if you have a counter in your hand, they can probably never beat over this back, so it just sits there and is generally very hard to get rid of. I play the full 4 copies. You want to be able to do this Climax combo when you get to level 2 as soon as humanly possible, especially if you can before you refresh, because then you have the biggest selection of possible things to salvage. 4 copies is the most fun part of the deck. Up next we have the Dex Level Assist. We play the Level Assist in order to help make that card I just showed you big, but additionally this Level Assist has another effect beyond the usual plus 500 power times the level of the character. You can pay an additional stock when this comes out to mill the top card of your opponent's library and then take one of the cards in their waiting room and put it on top of their library. If you have the extra stock, it's a good way to go fishing for Climaxes. Sometimes you hit a Climax on that effect and then can put a guaranteed damage on top of their deck. And even if not, it's just a level assist. It makes your stuff bigger, it makes it harder to kill. Because the deck's so intent on getting out the Advanced Summon and keeping it alive for as long as possible, I play 3 copies of the level assist in this deck. Here we have an interesting changer. It's an Encore Step change for a 3/2 that you will see when we get to the level 3 section of the deck, but as if that wasn't enough, to make up for the fact that it's a 2/17,000, this also has a Climax combo with Gate. What the Climax combo does is it gives this character plus 2,000 power and the ability to, when it reverses something, say it with me, you get to salvage. Combined with a Gate before any assist, that makes this thing swing as a 2/1 10,000. Meaning that if they have any soft targets whatsoever, not only are you going to get to reverse it and salvage, you then get to change into your 3/2, which is a lot of utility and something that you're just using primarily, in many sets, to just change into your level 3 anyway. It's a backup plan in this deck because we have the Advanced Summon, so I only play 2 copies of it, but it's definitely worth going for when you can, because it's another way in this deck to salvage. And last but not least, we have 2 humble 3k counters. This helps keep your Advanced Summon level 3 game alive. It also helps keep your other level 3s alive too. It's just a good card in a world full of clock shooters and things like that. It helps you keep your characters nice and big, means they don't get sent to clock or reversed, and that's always good, and that's why I play 2 copies of that in this deck. Alright, we're going to move along to the level 3 gaming Climaxes of the deck now. I play 3 copies of this. It's a 3/2 9,500 that gets plus 500 power for every other red character, so if you have a full board of red characters, this is 11/5 base, not counting assists or Climaxes or anything else like that. When it reverses a character, you get to pay 1 to burn. This thing can potentially get very big, and keeping in mind that can also be brought out early with the changer. You can potentially do a lot of burn damage with this. It can be hard to kill, and it can be hard to kill on the rebound if you have the level assist backing it and your counter. So theoretically, you can get multiple activations out of this, which is where it really starts to shine, because you can pile on the burn damage. I play 3 copies. Up next, we have the somewhat infamous Chloe level 3. She heals on play, which is nice, but the real power of the ability is when she reverses something, you get to pay 2 stock and deal damage to your opponent equal to the number of Climaxes you have in their waiting room. And this card's got a lot of press. I see a lot of people playing 4 copies of it. The problem with that, I find, is that you're only really most times going to be able to activate one of your Chloe's abilities. And even then, you might be in a situation where you have 5 Climaxes in waiting room, and there are times when the ability is really, really good, and there are times when the ability is not so good. Having the ability to heal is also nice, but especially in more competitive metas, if you're worried about anti-heal, this is basically a card that you're evaluating for its second ability a lot of the time anyway. I play 2 copies of it because it's nice to have one on my endgame boards, but I never really want more than one, and the fact that this deck can salvage as much as it does means that I'm usually not without a Chloe if I want one. And that's why I only play 2 copies of that. And then, last but not least, is the Climax spread. We play 4 of the 2K1 that combos with the 3-2 Advance Summon, and we play 4 Gate, which combos with the 2-1 Changer. They're also gates. This way, you have full access to your 3-2 Climax combo that lets you salvage 2 characters, and you play the 4 gates for the matchup, so you don't have to worry about anti-salvage, and you do have to worry about anti-salvage. You only have 4 gates that get hosed instead of any more than that.